My name is Blaze Adams, and at 67 years old, I never thought I would have to cancel my only daughter Amanda's wedding. She was the pride of my life, and when she announced her engagement to Jackson, a rising star in finance, I offered to pay for the entire wedding as my gift to her. Little did I know that a single phone call would change everything and force me to make the hardest decision of my life. Sometimes protecting someone you love requires painful choices they might not understand at first. If you are watching this video, drop a comment telling me where you are tuning in from, and hit that subscribe button if you want to hear how I saved my daughter from a terrible marriage by canceling 11 wedding venues overnight. To understand why I did what I did, you need to know a little about me and my family. I was born in a small town in Pennsylvania to working-class parents who taught me the value of hard work and integrity. My father was a carpenter, and I followed in his footsteps, starting as an apprentice when I was just 16 years old. By 25, I had saved enough to start my own small construction company. It was not glamorous work, but I took pride in building homes where families would create memories. My greatest blessing came when I met Margaret at a friend's barbecue in the summer of '83. She was a kindergarten teacher with the most beautiful smile I had ever seen. We got married less than a year later, and 2 years after that, our daughter Amanda was born. From the moment the nurse placed her in my arms, I knew I would do anything to protect her. Margaret and I raised Amanda with all the love we could give. We were not wealthy by any means, but we made sure she never wanted for anything important. As my business grew, we were able to move to a better neighborhood with good schools. Margaret was the perfect mother, patient and kind, always encouraging Amanda to follow her dreams. When Amanda was 17, our world fell apart. Margaret was diagnosed with stage 4 ovarian cancer. For 3 years, we fought the battle together as a family. Amanda postponed college to help care for her mother. Those were dark days, watching my beloved wife suffer while trying to stay strong for our daughter. Margaret passed away 10 years ago, but not before making me promise to always look out for Amanda. After her mother died, Amanda threw herself into her education. She earned a full scholarship to study healthcare administration and graduated at the top of her class. I could not have been prouder when she secured a position as an assistant administrator at Memorial Hospital. She had her mother's compassion and my determination. It was at a hospital charity fundraiser that Amanda met Jackson Williams. She called me the very next day, bubbling with excitement about the handsome financial advisor she had met. According to Amanda, Jackson had swept her off her feet, impressing her with stories about his work at Prestige Investment Partners. He had an MBA from Wharton and, at 32, was already managing accounts for some wealthy clients. When Amanda brought Jackson home for dinner a month later, I tried to keep an open mind. He was certainly charming and articulate, dressed in an expensive suit that probably cost more than my first car. He spoke confidently about investment strategies and market trends, and I noticed how Amanda hung on his every word. "Blaze," he said. Using my first name, though we had just met, I have to say, "You raised an incredible daughter. She is the full package, beauty and brains." I smiled and thanked him, though something about the way he spoke about Amanda, as if she were an acquisition rather than a person, made me slightly uncomfortable. Still, she seemed happy, and that was what mattered most to me. As they continued dating, I noticed subtle changes in Amanda. She started dressing differently, wearing more makeup, and dropping names of exclusive restaurants and clubs I had never heard of. When I mentioned it, she would laugh and say, "Dad, I am finally having fun. Jackson is showing me a whole new world." 6 months into their relationship, Amanda called me, screaming with excitement. "Dad, Jackson proposed. We are getting married." The proposal had happened at Le Chateau, the most expensive restaurant in the city. Jackson had arranged for a private dining room, champagne, and a photographer to capture the moment he got down on one knee with a diamond ring that looked large enough to have its own zip code. "He wants to have the wedding next June," Amanda gushed. "That gives us almost a year to plan everything." I took a deep breath. "Honey, that is wonderful. You know I want to help with the wedding costs." "Dad, you do not have to do that. she protested, but I could hear in her voice that she was hoping I would insist. I want to, I said firmly. I have been saving for this day since you were born. Your mother would have wanted you to have your dream wedding. What I did not tell her was that I had just retired the year before, and while I had a comfortable pension and savings, paying for an extravagant wedding would mean dipping into my retirement fund. But seeing her so happy made it worth every penny, or so I thought at the time. A week later, Jackson and Amanda invited me to dinner with his parents, Gregory and Suzanne Williams. They lived in an upscale neighborhood, in a house that looked like it belonged in a magazine. Gregory was a senior partner at a prestigious law firm, and Suzanne was on the board of several cultural foundations. Throughout dinner, I could not help but notice the subtle class differences. They discussed their vacations in Europe and their country club membership, while I sat quietly, feeling increasingly out of place. Jackson kept glancing at me with what seemed like embarrassment whenever I spoke about my construction business. So, Blaze, Gregory said, swirling his expensive wine. Amanda tells us you will be financing the wedding. That is very generous of you. My daughter deserves the best, I replied simply. Indeed she does, Suzanne added with a tight smile. And joining our family will open so many doors for her. I remember driving home that night with an uneasy feeling, but I pushed it aside, telling myself I was just being overprotective. Amanda was in love, and Jackson seemed to be a successful young man with a bright future. What more could a father ask for? The wedding planning began in earnest the following week. Amanda initially had modest ideas, talking about holding the ceremony at our local church where she had been baptized, followed by a reception at the community center. She had always been practical like her mother. I was thinking of asking Aunt Debbie to help with the flowers, she told me over coffee. And maybe we could hire that local band you like for the reception. But after a few weeks, her vision began to change dramatically. Jackson started accompanying her to our planning discussions, and suddenly the local church was too small and outdated, and the community center was not the right atmosphere. Darling, Jackson said during one of these meetings, his arm draped possessively around Amanda's shoulders, we should really consider Lakeside Resort. Their ballroom overlooks the water, and the sunset views are spectacular. My colleague had his wedding there last year, and even the CEO of our company attended. Amanda looked uncertain. But that is so far from where most of our family lives, and I know it is expensive. Jackson kissed her cheek. Only the best for us, right? Besides, your dad wants you to have your dream wedding. He looked at me expectantly, and what could I say? I nodded and smiled, even as I mentally calculated how much a venue like that might cost. The next day, Jackson insisted we meet with Veronica Hughes, supposedly the top wedding planner in the city. Her office was in a high-rise downtown, decorated with photos of celebrity weddings she had orchestrated. Her fee alone was $5,000. Let us talk budget, Veronica said, opening a leather-bound planner. For a standard wedding of around 150 guests, I usually recommend budgeting at least $30,000. I nearly choked on my water, but kept my composure. That seems reasonable, I said, thinking I could manage that amount without too much strain on my savings. But as Jackson began listing his requirements, that figure quickly ballooned. The Lakeside Resort venue alone would cost $25,000, with a non-refundable deposit of $10,000. Then came discussions of designer floral arrangements, premium open bar packages, and gourmet menu options. And of course, we will need a live band for the ceremony and a DJ for the reception, Jackson added. I know this amazing group that played at the governor's fundraiser last year. By the end of the meeting, the estimated budget had somehow reached $60,000. I felt a knot forming in my stomach, but the joy on Amanda's face as she looked through venue photos made me swallow my concerns. Dad, are you sure this is okay? She asked quietly as we left the office. It seems like a lot of money. Do not worry about it, sweetheart, I assured her. This is my gift to you. Over the next few months, I watched as the simple wedding Amanda had once envisioned transformed into something unrecognizable. She flew to New York with Jackson's mother to shop for wedding dresses, returning with a designer gown that cost $8,000. The photographer they selected charged $5,000 for the day, plus an additional $2,000 for a pre-wedding photo shoot. As the costs continued to mount, I finally worked up the courage to question some of the expenses. We were having dinner at my house, reviewing the latest invoices from Veronica. "Do we really need custom-engraved champagne flutes for each guest?" I asked, looking at a bill for $3,000. "And this ice sculpture of your initials seems a bit excessive." Jackson straightened in his chair. "Blaze, these details are what make a wedding memorable. Do you not want Amanda to have memories she will cherish forever?" He turned to her. "Your father does not understand that these touches are expected in our social circle." "Our social circle?" I repeated. "Yes," Jackson said smoothly. "Many of my colleagues and clients will be attending. Their impression of the wedding reflects on my professional reputation." Amanda placed her hand on mine. "Dad, I know it seems like a lot, but Jackson has excellent taste. I trust him to make our wedding perfect." I bit my tongue and nodded, but later that night, I called my bank to arrange for a transfer from my retirement account. This was not how I had planned to spend my golden years, but I reminded myself that it was just money, and Amanda's happiness was worth more than that. Around this time, I started noticing that Amanda seemed less excited about the wedding and more stressed. She lost weight, had trouble sleeping, and would sometimes snap at small things, which was not like her at all. When I asked if everything was okay, she would put on a bright smile and say, "Just wedding jitters, Dad. So much to do." One evening, her oldest friend Tanya came to see me. Tanya and Amanda had been inseparable since grade school, and she was supposed to be the maid of honor. "Mr. Adams," she said, looking troubled, "I am worried about Amanda. She is changing, and not in a good way. Last week, she canceled our dress fitting because Jackson wanted her to attend a cocktail party with his boss, and she keeps apologizing for the cost of the bridesmaid dresses she chose, but says Jackson insists they need to be from this specific designer." "Have you talked to her about this?" I asked. Tanya nodded sadly. "She gets defensive and says I do not understand the pressure she is under. Mr. Adams, I do not think she is happy, but she will not admit it." This conversation troubled me deeply, but every time I tried to have a heart-to-heart with Amanda, Jackson seemed to materialize, steering the conversation back to wedding plans and vendor selections. By the time we were 6 months into planning, I had already paid deposits to 11 different vendors, and the total budget had somehow reached $100,000. My retirement savings were dwindling, but I kept telling myself it would all be worth it to see Amanda happy on her big day. What I did not realize then was that the cost of this wedding would end up being far greater than just money. With 6 months left before the wedding, what had started as an exciting family celebration had transformed into what felt like a social networking event for Jackson. The budget had officially reached $100,000, a figure that made me dizzy whenever I thought about it. But it was not just the money that concerned me, it was the shift in priorities and values I was witnessing. Jackson had become obsessed with using the wedding to impress his colleagues and superiors. During a meeting with Veronica, he casually mentioned that the seating chart needed special attention. "My boss, Warren Kincaid, needs to be at the premium table with the best view," Jackson instructed, "and make sure to seat him next to the Andersons. Warren has been trying to get their investment portfolio for years." "This is not a business conference, Jackson," I said, trying to keep my tone light. "It is a wedding." He gave me a condescending smile. "In my world, Blaze, every social event is a business opportunity. That is how you get ahead." Amanda squeezed my hand under the table, a silent plea to drop the subject. The guest list became a particular source of tension. What had started as a gathering of family and close friends had ballooned to over 200 people, many of whom neither Amanda nor I had ever met. Meanwhile, longtime family friends were being cut to make room for Jackson's professional connections. "I do not understand why the Thompsons are not invited," I said one evening, referring to our neighbors who had watched Amanda grow up. "Nancy Thompson brought you soup every day for a month when you had mono in high school." Jackson says we need to limit the guest list, Amanda replied, not meeting my eyes. The venue can only hold so many people. Yet there is room for his entire office and clients he has never even landed? I countered. Dad, please try to understand. These connections are important for our future. It was not just the Thompsons. My younger brother Carl and his wife Lynn were suddenly in question because, according to Jackson, they might not fit the aesthetic of the wedding. Carl was a plumber who sometimes spoke too loudly and told inappropriate jokes, and Lynn had a colorful fashion sense that Jackson deemed tacky. They are family, I insisted when Jackson suggested not sending them an invitation. Distant family, Jackson corrected, and image is everything at an event like this. That night, I found Amanda crying in the guest bedroom of my house. When I sat beside her, she collapsed into my arms like she used to as a little girl. What is wrong, sweetheart? I asked, stroking her hair. Nothing, she sniffled. Just wedding stress. Is Jackson pressuring you about something? She quickly straightened up, wiping her tears. No, Dad. He just wants everything to be perfect. He has a vision, and sometimes I struggle to keep up with it. It is your wedding too, Amanda. Your vision matters. I know, she said, but her voice lacked conviction. Jackson just knows more about these things than I do. He moves in different circles. Those different circles became increasingly apparent as the wedding approached. Amanda's old friends from college and work were gradually being excluded from both the wedding party and the guest list, replaced by women Jackson deemed more socially advantageous, including the unmarried daughter of his firm's founding partner. One weekend, Jackson came over to discuss the rehearsal dinner, and I overheard him on the phone in my kitchen. Yeah, it is as bad as I expected, he was saying with a laugh. The house probably has not been updated since the 90s. His idea of art is a painting of dogs playing poker. There was a pause. I know, right? A construction worker with sawdust for brains. But his daughter is hot, and he is footing the bill for the wedding of the century, so I am not complaining. I stepped back silently, my face burning with anger and humiliation. But when Amanda came downstairs, beaming with excitement about centerpiece options, I could not bring myself to tell her what I had heard. Perhaps I was a coward, or perhaps I was still hoping that Jackson's true character was better than what I had glimpsed. But the incidents continued to pile up. Jackson criticized the suit I had chosen for the wedding, insisting I needed something more refined from his preferred tailor at $4,000. He complained about the whiskey I served him, the car I drove, and even the way I pronounced certain words. Meanwhile, Veronica, the wedding planner, was becoming increasingly uncomfortable with Jackson's demands. After a particularly tense meeting where he berated her assistant for bringing the wrong fabric samples, she pulled me aside. Mr. Adams, she said quietly, I have been planning weddings for 15 years, and I have to tell you, this level of control is unusual. Is your daughter truly happy with how things are progressing? The question hit me like a punch to the gut because I already knew the answer. Amanda was not happy. The joyful, confident woman she had once been was disappearing before my eyes, replaced by someone anxious and eager to please. She had lost 15 pounds from stress, rarely spent time with her old friends, and called me less and less. My concern deepened when I accidentally discovered some financial information about Jackson. While helping Amanda organize some papers in her apartment, I came across credit card statements showing Jackson was tens of thousands of dollars in debt, despite his supposedly high-paying job. There were charges from luxury stores, expensive restaurants, and exclusive clubs, all seemingly beyond his means. When I tried to broach the subject with Amanda, she became defensive. Everyone has some debt, Dad, she said dismissively. Besides, once Jackson makes partner next year, money will not be an issue. Has he discussed this debt with you? I pressed. Marriage means sharing financial responsibilities. We have everything under control, she insisted, closing the folder of statements. Please just focus on the wedding. That night I decided to do some research of my own. I had a friend in the financial sector who owed me a favor from years back when my company had renovated his office at cost. I asked him to discreetly look into Jackson's professional background. What he found troubled me further. Jackson was not on any partner track as he had claimed. His position was more junior than he had led us to believe, and there were rumors that his performance had been mediocre at best. The luxury lifestyle he projected appeared to be built on credit cards and exaggerations. I struggled with what to do with this information. Confronting Jackson directly would likely backfire, and telling Amanda risked her shutting me out completely if she was not ready to hear it. So I decided to simply be there for her, hoping she would eventually see through the facade on her own. But as the wedding date approached, that hope grew increasingly dim. The happy celebration I had envisioned for my only daughter had morphed into something unrecognizable, and I was beginning to fear that the marriage itself would follow the same troubling pattern. 1 week before the wedding, everything was in place. The lakeside resort was prepared to host 220 guests for what the manager had described as one of our most lavish events of the season. The florist was ready with thousands of imported white roses. The caterer had finalized the 7-course menu, and the custom-designed cake stood 5 tiers tall. I had written checks totaling almost all of my retirement savings, but I kept telling myself it was worth it for Amanda's happiness. On Thursday evening, just 3 days before the Sunday ceremony, I was sitting at my kitchen table reviewing the final itinerary Veronica had sent over. There were still a few details I wanted to confirm with Jackson about the rehearsal dinner, so I decided to give him a call. He answered on the 4th ring, sounding annoyed. "Blaze, I am in the middle of something important. Sorry to bother you," I said, trying to keep my tone pleasant. "I just had a couple of quick questions about Friday night." "Make it fast," he replied. I could hear voices in the background, the clink of glasses suggesting he was at some social event. The restaurant wanted to confirm our final head count for the rehearsal dinner. Also, I noticed my brother Carl and his wife are not on the list. I assume that was an oversight? There was a pause, and I heard Jackson excuse himself from whatever conversation he was having. When he spoke again, his voice was lower, more controlled, but with an edge of irritation. "No, that was not an oversight. We decided they would not be a good fit for the rehearsal dinner. It is an intimate affair with just the wedding party and immediate family." "Carl is immediate family," I pointed out. "He is my only brother." Jackson sighed heavily. "Blaze, the restaurant has limited space, and we had to prioritize." Amanda agreed with me on this. I doubted that very much, but I decided to move on. "What about my cousin Richard and his family? I noticed they are not on the main wedding guest list either, though I specifically requested they be included." "Look," Jackson said, his patience clearly wearing thin, "we had to make some difficult decisions about the guest list. The venue can only accommodate so many people." "That is strange," I replied, "because just last week, you added 6 people from your office that were not on the original list." "Those are important business connections," he snapped. "More important than my family?" I asked, feeling my own temper rising. "Frankly, yes," Jackson said coldly. "We only want important people at our wedding." The words hit me like a physical blow. I sat in stunned silence, trying to process what he had just said. Taking my silence for acquiescence, Jackson continued, his tone becoming almost lecturing. "Look, Blaze, no offense, but you would not understand. In our circles, a wedding is not just a family celebration. It is a networking opportunity. The people there reflect our status and can influence our future. Your brother the plumber and your cousin with the used car dealership, they just do not contribute anything valuable to that equation." "Important people," I repeated slowly. "And what exactly makes someone important, Jackson?" "People with connections, influence, the right social standing," he replied, as if explaining something obvious to a child. "People who can advance our careers and open doors. That is how the real world works." "I see," I said quietly. "And I am assuming I barely made the cut for this important people-only event?" He laughed, a short, dismissive sound. "Well, you are the bride's father, and you are paying the bills. But honestly, if it were entirely up to me, I would have limited your role. No offense, but your background does not exactly mesh with the image we are trying to present." In that moment, something cold and clear settled in my chest. I thought of Margaret, of the promise I had made to her to protect our daughter. I thought of Amanda, how she had changed since meeting this man, growing smaller and dimmer in his presence. "I understand," I said, my voice calm. "Thank you for being honest, Jackson." "Great," he replied, clearly relieved the conversation was ending. "So we are good on the rehearsal dinner? No more additions?" "We are clear," I assured him. "Have a good night." "You too, Blaze." I hung up the phone and sat in my darkened kitchen for a long time. The house was quiet except for the ticking of the old wall clock Margaret had loved. I could almost hear her voice. "Blaze Adams, what are you going to do about this?" For hours, I wrestled with my conscience. Was I overreacting to an insensitive comment? Was it my place to interfere in my adult daughter's choices? What would this decision do to my relationship with Amanda? But in the end, one thought kept returning. If I let Amanda marry this man, I would be failing in my most important duty as a father. Jackson had shown me who he truly was, not just in this phone call but in 100 small moments leading up to it. He did not love Amanda for who she was, but for what she represented, another acquisition in his carefully cultivated image. As midnight approached, I made my decision. I opened the wedding planning binder, with all the contracts and contact information neatly organized by Veronica. Then I picked up the phone and began to dial. I knew what I was about to do would likely make Amanda hate me, at least temporarily. I knew I was about to lose a small fortune in non-refundable deposits. But some things were more important than money, and some lessons were worth the pain they caused. This was one of them. With a deep breath, I made the first call. The first number I dialed belonged to Edward Simmons, the event manager at Lakeside Resort. Despite the late hour, he answered professionally, probably assuming it was a last-minute request for the upcoming wedding. "Edward," I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside me. "This is Blaze Adams, father of the bride for the Adams-Williams wedding scheduled this Sunday." "Of course, Mr. Adams. How can I help you at this hour? Is everything all right?" "I am calling to inform you that the wedding is canceled," I said simply. There was a long pause. "Mr. Adams, are you certain? The event is just 3 days away. All arrangements have been finalized." "I am certain," I replied. "I understand that we will forfeit the deposits and any balance due according to the cancellation policy. Please send the final invoice to my address." Edward cleared his throat. "Sir, this is highly unusual. Perhaps you would like to discuss this with the wedding planner, or take some time to think it over." "My decision is final," I said firmly. "Please begin the cancellation process immediately." After ending the call with Edward, I moved methodically through the binder. Next was Divine Catering, where I spoke with the owner, Maria Gonzalez. "Mr. Adams, this is so sudden," she exclaimed after I delivered the news. "May I ask what happened?" "A private family matter," I said. "I apologize for the inconvenience and understand there will be financial penalties." "Yes, unfortunately, with all the food already ordered." She trailed off, then added more gently, "I hope everything is okay with your family." "It will be," I assured her, though I was far from certain. The calls continued, one after another. To Elegant Bloom's florist, who had ordered thousands of dollars worth of flowers that would now go to waste. To Symphony String Quartet, scheduled to play during the ceremony. To Enchanted Moments Photography, who had a team of 3 photographers booked for the entire weekend. With each call, the reality of what I was doing became heavier. This was not just about money anymore, but about dozens of people whose plans would be disrupted, services that had been meticulously arranged now being dismantled in the middle of the night. Some vendors were understanding, others frustrated or confused. The baker who had spent weeks crafting the elaborate wedding cake was particularly upset. "Mr. Adams, we have already completed the bottom 3 tiers. The fondant work alone took my team 2 full days. I will pay for the cake in full," I told her. "Perhaps you could donate it to a local shelter or nursing home." By 3 in the morning, I had made 8 calls, systematically undoing months of planning. My hand cramped from writing notes. My ear was sore from pressing the phone against it, but I pressed on. The ninth call was to Timeless Memories Videography, where I left a voicemail explaining the situation and requesting a return call to discuss the cancellation terms. The 10th was to Classic Rides Limousine Service, who had arranged a fleet of luxury vehicles to transport the wedding party. Finally, just as dawn was breaking, I dialed the last and most difficult number, Veronica Hughes, the wedding planner who had orchestrated everything. Despite the early hour, she answered alertly. "Blaze, is something wrong?" "Veronica," I said, my voice now hoarse from hours of difficult conversations, "I have made a decision that will affect all the plans we have made. I have decided to cancel the wedding." The silence that followed was profound. When Veronica finally spoke, her voice was careful. "Blaze, this is a very serious step. Have you discussed this with Amanda and Jackson?" "No," I admitted. "They will find out soon enough. May I ask why? Has something happened?" I hesitated, then decided Veronica deserved some explanation after all her work. "Let us just say, I have come to realize that this wedding would be a mistake, one that would cost my daughter far more than money in the long run." To my surprise, Veronica did not try to talk me out of it. Instead, she sighed deeply. "I cannot say I am entirely shocked. Between us, Jackson has been difficult. My staff has been walking on eggshells around him for months." "What do you mean?" I asked. "He has been controlling every detail, often contradicting Amanda's wishes when she is not present. Last week, he reduced my assistant to tears over the shade of the table runners, and he has made some concerning comments about Amanda's appearance, her friends, even her career choices. This confirmation of my fears only strengthened my resolve. So you understand why I have to do this?" "I do," she said softly. "Though I cannot officially endorse a father canceling his daughter's wedding behind her back, I will say that sometimes the kindest actions do not feel kind in the moment." "Exactly," I whispered. Veronica promised to handle the remaining vendors and coordinate the cancellations professionally. As we ended the call, she added, "For what it is worth, Blaze, I think you are a good father. Not an easy one, perhaps, but a good one." By 6 in the morning, it was done. 11 venues and vendors had been notified that the Adams-Williams wedding would not be taking place. My retirement savings were decimated, but the shackles I had felt tightening around my daughter's future had been broken. I turned off my phone, knowing it would soon be ringing non-stop. Then I walked out to my back porch and sat on the old wooden swing where I used to rock Amanda to sleep as a child. The sky was turning from indigo to pale blue, birds beginning their morning songs. A new day was dawning, and with it would come the storm. But for now, in this quiet moment, I felt strangely at peace. I had done what I believed was right, what Margaret would have wanted me to do. Whatever came next, I would face it knowing that. The swing creaked gently as I rocked back and forth, waiting for the world to wake up and discover what I had done. I did not have to wait long for the storm to break. At precisely 8:32 in the morning, my doorbell rang with such ferocity that it seemed determined to shatter. I took a deep breath, stood up from my kitchen table where I had been nursing a cup of coffee, and walked to the door. I opened it to find Amanda and Jackson standing on my porch, her face tear-streaked, his contorted with rage. Without waiting for an invitation, Jackson pushed past me into the house. "What the hell have you done?" he shouted, his carefully cultivated professional demeanor completely gone. "I have been getting calls all morning about cancellations. The venue, the caterer, the florist, all telling me that you canceled everything." Amanda followed him in, her eyes wide and confused. "Dad, please tell me this is some kind of mistake," she pleaded. "The wedding is in 3 days. Everything was perfect." I closed the door quietly and turned to face them. "Why do not we all sit down?" I suggested, gesturing to the living room. "I do not want to sit down," Jackson spat. "I want you to fix this. Call everyone back right now and tell them it was a misunderstanding." "I cannot do that," I said calmly, "and I will not." Amanda sank onto the couch, her legs seemingly unable to support her any longer. "Why, Dad? Why would you do this to me?" The pain in her voice nearly broke my resolve, but I remembered the phone call from the night before, remembered all the red flags I had been ignoring for months. "I am not doing this to you, sweetheart. I am doing this for you," I said gently, sitting beside her. "Though I know it does not feel that way right now." "This is insane," Jackson interjected, pacing the room like a caged animal. "Do you have any idea what this makes us look like? I have colleagues, important people who were coming to this wedding." "Yes," I said, looking directly at him. "Important people. That is what this is about. Is not it, Jackson? Important people." He faltered slightly, a flicker of recognition crossing his face before he recovered. "What are you talking about? You have lost your mind, old man." I turned to Amanda. "Last night, I called Jackson to ask about some family members who had been removed from the guest list, including my brother Carl and his family. We discussed that," Amanda said uncertainly. "The venue had space limitations." "That is what he told you," I replied. "But last night, Jackson told me the truth. He said, and I quote, 'We only want important people at our wedding.'" Amanda's eyes widened, and she looked to Jackson, who had stopped pacing. "You said that?" she asked quietly. "He is twisting my words," Jackson said quickly. "I just meant we had to prioritize, that is all. When I asked what makes someone important," I continued steadily, "he explained that it means people with connections, influence, the right social standing, people who can advance your careers." "You are taking everything out of context," Jackson snapped. "Am I?" I challenged. "Then perhaps you would like to explain the context in which you said my background does not mesh with the image you are trying to present. Or how you would have limited my role in the wedding, if it were up to you." Amanda stood up slowly, her face pale. "Jackson, did you really say those things about my father?" Jackson's demeanor changed suddenly, his anger giving way to calculation. He approached Amanda, taking her hands in his. "Baby, you have to understand, this wedding is important for our future. Your father is a great guy, but he does not understand how our world works. The connections we make at this wedding could set us up for life." "Our world?" Amanda repeated. "What about my family? What about the people who have loved me my whole life?" "We will be starting our own family," he said soothingly. "And we need to think about what is best for our future children. The right schools, the right neighborhoods, the right opportunities." I watched silently as this exchange unfolded, seeing Amanda truly hearing Jackson perhaps for the first time. "So my cousin's children are not good enough to play with our future children?" she asked, pulling her hands away. "My uncle, who worked 2 jobs to put himself through community college, is not important enough to attend our wedding." Jackson's face hardened. "Be realistic, Amanda. Do you think the senior partners at my firm want to make small talk with your father's construction buddies? Do you think the Kincaids want to sit at a table with your aunt who works at the mall?" Each word seemed to hit Amanda like a physical blow, and I could see the scales falling from her eyes. "I thought this wedding was about us," she said softly, "about celebrating our love with the people who care about us." Jackson laughed, a short, dismissive sound that echoed in the quiet room. "Do not be naive. Weddings like ours are social currency. I have been planning this for months, making sure the right people would be there. Do you have any idea how many strings I pulled to get Warren Kincaid to agree to come? This was my chance to finally get noticed, to show everyone that I belong at the top." "Your chance?" Amanda repeated, her voice growing stronger. "What about our chance to start our life together, surrounded by people who love us?" "Love does not pay for the lifestyle you have gotten used to," Jackson retorted. "All those designer clothes, the luxury vacations I have been treating you to, those come from connections, from impressing the right people." I could not stay silent any longer. "Actually, they seem to come from maxed-out credit cards and debt you have been hiding," I said quietly. Jackson whirled on me. "You had no right to look into my finances. You are marrying my daughter. I replied simply. Of course I had the right. Amanda looked between us, confusion written on her face. What debt? Jackson, what is he talking about? Before Jackson could answer, I continued. I found credit card statements showing tens of thousands in debt, and I had a friend in finance look into your job situation. You are not on any partner track, are you, Jackson? Your position is more junior than you claimed, and according to my source, your performance has been mediocre at best. The color drained from Jackson's face, replaced by a flush of anger. This is slander. Your construction buddy thinks he knows about the financial world? Please. Dad, is this true? Amanda asked me, her voice barely above a whisper. I believe it is, I said gently. I think Jackson has been creating an illusion, sweetheart. An illusion of success, of connections, of a lifestyle he cannot actually afford. Jackson looked from me to Amanda, clearly sensing the situation slipping from his control. His strategy changed instantly. Amanda, he said, his voice now hard and cold, you need to choose right now, him or me. Your father has deliberately sabotaged our wedding, humiliated us both in front of everyone we know. If you want a future with me, you need to cut him out of your life entirely. The room fell silent. Amanda stood very still, looking at the man she had planned to marry as if seeing him for the first time. The truth is, Jackson continued, seemingly unable to stop himself, this wedding was not just about networking. It was about erasing your background, rebranding you as someone worthy of my world. I have spent months coaching you, improving you, making you presentable to people who matter. The words hung in the air like poison. Amanda reached for her left hand and slowly twisted the enormous diamond ring from her finger. I think you should leave, she said quietly, holding the ring out to him. You cannot be serious, Jackson scoffed. You are choosing him, the construction worker, over me and everything I can offer you? I am choosing me, Amanda replied, her voice growing stronger. The real me, not your rebranded version. And yes, I am choosing my father, who loves me exactly as I am. You will regret this, Jackson snarled, snatching the ring from her outstretched hand. I will sue you both for the deposits, for breach of contract, for emotional distress. By the time my lawyers are done with you, you will not have a penny left. Get out of my house, I said quietly but firmly, standing to my full height. Now, for a moment, I thought he might refuse, might continue his tirade. But something in my expression must have convinced him I was not to be trifled with. He gave Amanda one last contemptuous look, then stormed out, slamming the door so hard that the windows rattled. In the sudden silence, Amanda stood frozen for several seconds. Then, like a marionette whose strings had been cut, she collapsed onto the couch and began to sob, deep, wrenching cries that seemed torn from her very soul. I sat beside her and took her in my arms, holding her as she wept, just as I had when she was a little girl with a skinned knee or a broken heart. I said nothing, knowing that sometimes silence is the only appropriate response to pain. Eventually her sobs quieted. I am so stupid, she whispered against my shoulder. How did I not see who he really was? You are not stupid, I told her firmly. You are kind and trusting, and he took advantage of that. We all wanted to see the best in him. All those things he said about you, about our family. She shuddered. How could I have almost married someone who thinks that way? Love can be blinding, I said simply, and Jackson is very good at showing people what they want to see. She pulled back slightly, wiping her tears with the back of her hand. Did you really cancel everything? The whole wedding? I nodded. All 11 major vendors and venues. Veronica is handling the rest. All that money, she whispered, fresh tears welling in her eyes. Dad, your retirement savings. Just money, I said firmly. Money can be replaced. You cannot. She leaned against me again, her body still trembling with aftershocks of emotion. What am I going to do now? Everyone will be talking about this. All those people Jackson invited, his family, his colleagues. Let them talk, I said. The people who truly care about you will understand. The rest do not matter. Mom would have seen through him immediately. Would not she? Amanda asked softly. I smiled at the memory of Margaret, her keen insight into people's characters. Within 5 minutes, I agreed. She was always better at reading people than I was. Thank you, Amanda whispered, for seeing what I could not, for being brave enough to do something about it. I kissed the top of her head, feeling a bittersweet mixture of relief and sadness. The road ahead would not be easy for Amanda, but at least she would be walking it as herself, not as the carefully crafted image Jackson had tried to mold her into. That is what dads are for, I told her, even when it breaks our hearts to see you hurting. Outside, the sun climbed higher in the sky, casting warm light through the windows of the home where Amanda had grown up, the home where she was now beginning the process of healing and rediscovering herself. It would take time, but I knew my daughter. She was stronger than she realized, just like her mother. And unlike the wedding I had just canceled, that was something truly worth investing in. The days immediately following what should have been Amanda's wedding were some of the hardest we had faced since her mother's death. Amanda alternated between periods of grief, anger, and numbing emptiness as she processed the shocking collapse of the future she had envisioned. I do not know who I am anymore, she confessed one evening as we sat on my back porch. I changed so much for him, trying to fit into his world, that I lost track of myself. You are still you, I assured her. The core of who you are never changed. It was just buried for a while. I was careful never to say I told you so, or remind her of the warnings I had tried to give. Instead, I focused on being present, listening when she needed to talk, giving her space when she needed silence. The healing would come at its own pace, and my job was simply to provide safe harbor through the storm. A week after the canceled wedding, Amanda discovered just how deep Jackson's deception had run. His threats of lawsuits never materialized, likely because he had too much to hide. A close friend of hers who worked at the bank revealed that Jackson had taken out a personal loan in both their names, forging Amanda's signature on the documents. The money, nearly $30,000, had apparently gone toward maintaining his facade of wealth, including the luxury car he drove and the expensive watch he always wore. I should have known, Amanda said, staring at the loan paperwork in disbelief. He always insisted on handling all the financial planning for after the wedding. He said it was because he was the expert, but really, he just did not want me to see the truth. Are you going to report him? I asked. She thought for a moment, then shook her head. I just want him out of my life completely. Fighting him would only keep him in it longer. I respected her decision, though I privately made arrangements to pay off the portion of the loan that was in her name. It was a small price to pay for her freedom from this man. Gradually, Amanda began reaching out to the friends she had distanced herself from during her relationship with Jackson. Tanya, her oldest friend, who had expressed concerns to me months earlier, was the first to come over, arriving with ice cream and open arms. I have missed you so much, Tanya said, embracing Amanda. The real you, not the Jackson-approved version. I am so sorry I pushed you away, Amanda replied tearfully. Hey, what are friends for if not to welcome you back after a temporary bout of fiancé-induced insanity? Tanya joked, and for the first time in weeks, I heard Amanda laugh genuinely. Other friends followed, each reunion helping Amanda reconnect with the person she had been before Jackson. Her cousin Rachel, who had been excluded from the wedding at Jackson's insistence, drove 3 hours just to spend the day with her. He was such a snob, Rachel declared bluntly, as they looked through old photo albums. Remember when he asked if my community college degree was even real education? Amanda winced. I cannot believe I let him talk that way about people I love. Love makes us stupid sometimes, Rachel shrugged. The important thing is you wised up before saying, I do. The process of canceling the remaining wedding elements became a kind of ritual for Amanda, each phone call or email another step toward closure. She insisted on handling these herself, facing the awkward questions and expressions of sympathy with growing strength. Most people were kind. A few of Jackson's friends and family members sent nasty messages, but Amanda deleted them without response. "They never really knew me anyway," she said with newfound clarity. One evening, about 6 months after the wedding that never was, Amanda and I sat in my kitchen sharing a simple meal of spaghetti, Margaret's old recipe that had always been Amanda's favorite comfort food. "I have been offered a promotion," she announced, twirling pasta on her fork. "Director of Community Outreach for the hospital. It would mean developing programs to serve underprivileged neighborhoods." "That sounds perfect for you," I said sincerely. "You have always had your mother's heart for helping others." Amanda nodded. "Jackson hated when I talked about community work. He said it was not prestigious enough, that I should aim for administration roles where I could network with wealthy donors." She shook her head ruefully. "I actually turned down a similar opportunity last year because he convinced me it would not advance our social standing." "And now?" I asked. A genuine smile spread across her face. I said yes immediately. "I start next month." I reached across the table and squeezed her hand, my heart swelling with pride. This was the daughter I knew, finding her way back to herself. In the months that followed, Amanda truly blossomed. The promotion energized her, giving her purpose and satisfaction. She moved to a smaller apartment that she chose for herself, decorated with things she loved rather than what was trendy or impressive. She even started dating again, casually and carefully, a nice doctor from the hospital who treated her with genuine respect. Nearly a year after the canceled wedding, Amanda and I took a weekend trip to the mountains, something we had done often when she was younger but had stopped during her time with Jackson, who had dismissed hiking as pointless exertion. As we reached the summit of our favorite trail and looked out over the spectacular view, Amanda turned to me. "I need to thank you properly," she said, her eyes clear and direct. "What you did took incredible courage. You risked our relationship, your savings, everything, to protect me from a mistake I was too blind to see." "You would have seen it eventually," I said. "I just sped up the process." She shook her head. "I do not know if I would have. I was so caught up in the fantasy, in being the person he wanted me to be. And by then, it might have been too late." She took a deep breath. "So thank you, Dad. Thank you for loving me enough to do something hard." "Always," I promised, thinking of Margaret and how proud she would be of the woman our daughter had become. As we stood there, I reflected on the lessons of the past year, the wisdom earned through pain. I had learned that sometimes the most important people in our lives are not those with power, wealth, or social status, but those who see our true selves and love us anyway. I had learned that standing up for someone's worth might temporarily break their heart, but can ultimately save their soul. And I had learned that no amount of money, no lavish wedding or impressive connections could ever substitute for genuine love and respect. Amanda had learned these lessons too, in her own way and time. She was stronger now, more discerning, more authentic. The painful experience with Jackson had burned away pretense and clarified what truly mattered to her. In losing what she thought she wanted, she had found what she truly needed. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks, I thought about how life's most valuable lessons often come wrapped in the most painful packages. The canceled wedding had cost me nearly all my retirement savings, but watching my daughter reclaim herself and her life was a return on investment beyond measure. "What are you thinking about, Dad?" Amanda asked as we began our descent. "I am thinking that the truly important people in life are not the ones with the right connections or the biggest bank accounts," I replied. "They are the ones who love you unconditionally and have the courage to tell you the truth even when it hurts." She nodded, linking her arm through mine as we navigated the rocky path. I will never forget that lesson again. That evening, as Amanda drove us back to the city, I glanced over at my daughter, her profile illuminated by the dashboard lights. She looked more like Margaret than ever, not just in her features but in the quiet strength and authenticity she now carried. The wedding that never happened had been intended to cost $100,000 for a single day of celebration. Instead, that money had purchased something far more valuable, a lifetime of wisdom and the chance for Amanda to build a future based on truth rather than illusion. Some might call that a steep price, but as I watched my daughter confidently navigating both the road ahead and her reclaimed life, I knew it was the best money I had ever spent. Have you ever had to make a difficult decision to protect someone you love, even when they might not understand at first? Share your experience in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more real-life lessons. And remember, the truly important people in your life are those who love you for exactly who you are, not what you can do for them. Thank you for listening, and may you always have the courage to recognize your own worth.